Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Man, I'm so excited. Maybe you've been in my shoes where you get your bumper on, your aftermarket bumper on your 4Runner or your Tacoma, and you're so excited, you got the winch on, got the wiring, got the lights and everything all hooked up. But then you're like, oh, what do I do with this big giant hole here? This is unsightly. And if you're standing up walking around it, you don't really notice it. But if this is parked in the parking lot and you're 10 feet away from it, you're going to see this big hole. What do you do with it? Do you cut this fender out? Do you build brackets for these little things? So there's a lot of things you can do. Obviously your factory skid plate doesn't fit here anymore. So what do? I'm going to show you how I'm doing it. It's not super hard. If you have a few basic fabrication tools, this is pretty easy job, and you can custom make it however you want. So I'm going to make 2 brackets, one for each side, that kind of covers up all this mess and still retains some of the fender, the front part of the fender here. And then we'll make a separate skid plate that'll go along the front that we need to ventilate to make sure this is getting plenty airflow. Because what's happened with these aftermarket bumpers is they've taken out a lot of the grill, right? In fact, most of the grill's gone. There's a little bit of grill left right here. It's not much, and it'll let some airflow into here as you're going down the highway. But this big bumper here blocks a lot of it. This thing's 10 inches tall, almost 12 inches tall in places. In fact, including this, it's much taller than that. And these holes in the front, they'll provide some airflow. Now what's interesting about this is when I cut this factory bumper off, it shrouded pretty much everything from here down. Everything from like roughly here up was grill. And you can see that if you look inside. You probably can't see it well on the camera, but there's bugs all in the condenser for the air conditioner about halfway down. Okay, starting at the top and about halfway down there's bugs. The bottom half, there's no bugs. And let's look at it from the bottom here, especially since we have it jacked up. It's nice and clean. And why is that? Because that factory bumper shrouded all this and kept any bugs from hitting here. So this didn't get real good airflow. Well, now sort of the airflow is traded off, right? It's not going to be coming through the top. It's going to be coming more through the bottom. So I don't want to completely put a solid skid plate here and block all this off. What I want to do is build just a real basic skid plate out of steel. We'll just make a couple bends. A bend here so we can screw it to the bottom of this. We'll make a bend right down here, just keep it flat. We'll cut out some holes, and then we'll put some expanded metal in it. That'll still allow some airflow to get in here. Now here's one of the things you definitely want to protect. Now obviously, if you take this fender all the way out, this windshield washer reservoir and pump could be damaged from rocks from your own tires. Otherwise, if you leave this in place, then you just have to worry about the front. And there's not a ton of rocks that go bouncing down the highway that are big enough that are going to smash that. But I guess if you're off-roading, you could hit something, or you could pick up some road debris or something that could smash that and break it. And then it's, if you don't have windshield washer, it might not be a life or death situation, but it's another part to exchange. And it's probably not cheap is my guess. So let's jump into this. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. It's a little bit of metal fabrication with 16 gauge steel. It's some bending and some cutting, maybe some welding if you need to. You might be able to get away doing this if you're smarter than me without having to weld. Because the only reason I'm welding is because I made a mistake and I'm trying to fill in more metal because I cut my metal too small. Okay, so what I did was, to start with, I just got a piece of cardboard and just cut out a big square. And I made a bend along the top right here because I knew what I wanted was to have my first piece of metal be able to run right along here, this bottom part of the bumper, and I wanted to be able to screw it to the bottom of the bumper. Now this is not going to be a skid plate like on the front that I'm going to be taking off more often, maybe to change oil or to do whatever to get to the winch or whatever under there. This is going to be more permanent because I'm not planning on getting inside of here very often, at least. So this is the start of my cardboard. I made a couple little bends in it right here that you can see, and that little bend, this little piece is to go over here and attach right here, and you can see I've already put a riv nut right there. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and this was just my start, and you got to start somewhere. So I just started cutting out a piece of cardboard and putting it up here and trying to move it around and cut it. I messed it up a couple times and had to restart, but no big deal. So I knew I wanted this to be able to go sort of at an angle. I wanted to have a stop somewhere here. There's not a lot to attach it to back here, but I knew I could use this part of my aftermarket bumper. So I just drilled a little hole there, put a riv nut in there. My original plan was to use self-tapping screws, but this steel's thick enough that my self-tapping screws are breaking off. So I just put a riv nut in there, and that'll hold that right there. And I'll be able to drill a hole in my metal. That'll go right there. So that little bit, that's what those 2 little bends do right there. Okay, and then what do you do with this hole? You can see I've already cut away some of the fender right here. That's after I've already finished this side. So I'll show you that in a minute. But basically, I just made a little triangle here to fill this spot up here. Now, I could have made a bend just like this and continued this along here, but then I've got this piece right here, and I was like, well, what do I do with that? And I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and hide everything, kind of stick it up inside here, make a triangle, and I'll make a bend right here where the white cardboard and the brown cardboard come together. I'll just make a bend that pulls it up inside there. Also, I'd need a way to attach this to this. So when I traced this out on my steel, I made this a little bit wider on this edge so that I would have a little bit of metal sticking out, about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And then I bent that 90 degrees in so that I would have something to screw this to, okay? So I'd have a little bit of a lip going along here. I'll show you that in a minute. But basically it worked out okay. It looks much better than just having a big open hole. And you know, these people that sell these bumpers don't really have a great solution for all these holes that you end up with. So right now, here's what I came up with. It's soaking in phosphoric acid right now, so I'm waiting for that to dry. Oh, it's kind of dry. It's already dry. I can probably paint it now. But basically, here's the one bend that goes down to the frame of the bumper. This is the top edge, the bend that has the 3 holes in it that'll hold it along the bottom of the bumper. This is the part that goes along the fender right here. And here's my flange for the fender. And you can see I didn't make it wide enough the first time, so I had to weld this on here to make it wider. And so it'll be a little unsightly having this gap here. I almost redid the whole thing, but I thought, you know what, I'm not even sure I'm going to keep this piece. So I just tack welded this on, and I'm going to put it on. We're going to paint it and just see what it looks like. And if it looks decent, I might run it for a while, but it might need something better. All right, here we are at the driver's side, and I've already got this piece cut out from the other side, so we're just going to kind of reverse the bends on it to the opposite way and see if it fits up. So it should fit up. This bumper should be pretty consistent here, but where the bumper is oriented as far as, you know, where it hits on the vehicle might be different because my mounting isn't perfect. Let's just leave it at that. This is not a great surface to clamp on, but these little rubber things seems to do okay. All right, and then this seems to come back and hit right there, right about where I want it. Let's just clip that right there. All right, so I know with my other skid plate here that's going to start here and go that way, I'm going to have a gap here. I'm okay with that. Now, what are we going to do for this part? My original triangle that I cut out, you know, doesn't cover this hole up at all here. So I'm going to cut out another triangle. We'll tape it to this one, and maybe we'll even try to cut a little bit of a radius here. All right, in order to try to capture this radius, what I'm going to do is just put my cardboard up here, hold it there, and this is just any old piece of cardboard. And then I'm going to set my pin right here, and I'm just going to run it along the cardboard along this, try not to push on it too much, try not to flex it too much. Let's just see what it looks like. Okay, so I want my metal to come basically from here and run right along this right here. Or basically it's going to come down back like this to a point down here. So I'm going to measure from here to here. So that's 12 inches. That's every bit of 12 inches. Now this stuff's fairly flexible. You know, you don't have to, I don't think I have to make a radius, but I just thought it'd be fun to mess with that a little bit just to see what I could come up with. But if you make a mistake with steel, it's hard to correct it. You either got to weld a piece of steel in or start all over. So, all right, so we've got to come out 12 inches from here. We've got enough cardboard for that. We've got to come up 16 inches from here. So, and that 16 inches is from the 12-inch mark. I'd like that to go up inside there a little bit further. So I've got to make this a little bit wider here, go a little bit further that way so I can make a bend so I have something to screw this to. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. We seem to have good coverage, and let's put it on metal, get it cut out, and get it bent. Now we'll go ahead and mark our bends as well, so I know where to bend it later. I already know I'm going to bend this forward right here. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Is I didn't allow for my edge. So I've got to make sure that I come out here. So for my bends, I'm going to put a bend right here, and a bend right here. Mark this side. Our bend's going to start here, end up here, of course. And that should be it. We got that bend, we got that bend, and we got those bends, like that. So I'm going to make this about 1 inch wide, because once I bend it, it's only going to give me about, you know, not that much. So let's run this line from here to here. This will be a bend here, this will be a cut. So I'll cut this, that'll give me my lip. I already have a built-in lip here. I'm going to make that line for the bend. Let's put it back on here one more time just to make sure everything looks like it's supposed to. That'll be my edge right there. Okay, so I know with this Harbor Freight saw, this metal cutting saw, I can put this guide 1/16 away from my kerf. So my kerf is going to run down right at 1 1/16. So that's where we'll clamp it here. Just double check. 1 1/16, 1 1/16, perfect. Now if you're using this metal cutting blade, it contains most, you can see it's got a really good shield on it. It's really hard to see where you're cutting, but that's why I use this guide. But definitely wear something like this, because these metal shavings literally go everywhere. Okay, now how are we going to bend this? So I'm just going to score this with the cutoff wheel, and I'm going to try not to go more than halfway. I'll just try to make one light pass, and then one more pass, and then just leave it at that. Now, if I can, I'll try to make my score on the inside of the bend so that this will be the outside, and that bend hopefully won't be as visible. Okay, we've got 3 bends to make. One there, and one there. You got to really plan these out because, you know, this may not fit inside your brake, but this does, fortunately. But if I make it bend here, right, if I bend this first, I won't be able to get this inside the brake to bend this side and this side. So my plan is to go ahead and bend this one, and then we're going to go over to the table and just bend this by hand. Okay, and it's always easier to add more, so now for these other bends that are a little more challenging, we'll just use the vise right here to make this back bend. And for this bend, since we scored it, it should be pretty easy. We're going to lay it right along the edge there. And then we'll just flex it down and hopefully could have scored it a little bit more, but you can see the line there. It's a pretty good line. I'm probably going to have to bend a little more is my guess. Okay, and as far as this edge goes, this would be easy in the brake except for this big piece that hangs over right here. This gets in the way. So we'll just set it in the vise and just bend it over little by little. This one's not cosmetic. I'm not as concerned about how this one looks. Now, here's another way to do it. Got a good score line, so it should bend right there on the score. Now, you want to make sure you bend this. I bent this the wrong way. I don't know if you noticed, but I bent this out this way and bent this that way. So I had to bend them back the other way, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm bending them back the right way. The more you flex steel, the weaker it's going to get. So try to not make my mistake and get this right the first time, because you want to just bend it one time. All right, came out okay. The other side came out a lot better. So this was definitely a learning curve with this one. Let's get this one on. Oh, I got it dirty.
Wait, are you telling me those aren't going to be black?
I'll paint them.
Okay. Uh-oh, some mud came off.
Where's the hole?
Oh, that's a nice fit.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, but you got it all dirty.
The new bumper's all dirty too, but
Wow, that is sweet. That's pretty sweet.
okay, now we're just going to use this metal edge as a guide, and I would like to put a screw in down here, you know, to hold it in place so it wouldn't wobble around. I'm just going to hold it in place though and cut it. It's a little bit mobile, so I'm just going to kind of drop it right in the middle where it feels kind of like it's not pushed too far one way or other, just kind of right in the middle. And we'll hold it right there using this little oscillator tool. Okay, and looking from down here, you know, it's not perfect, but we're looking up underneath. Looking from the side, it's going to have nice coverage, and looking for the top, you're not going to be able to tell anything. Of course, we'll paint the screws. We're going to go ahead and paint this and get these screws out, get it mounted up. I'm not sure what happened here. I thought my blade was running like this, and you can see that somehow I cut it way inside there. And so I thought I was running my blade right along here, so I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but it is what it is. I got 3 screws down here, I got 1 up here, and so I think that's plenty to hold it. I could put 1 right here and just put a washer on it, and that would help hold that as well. And I soak all my steel projects in OSPHO. This is phosphoric acid. They have some other additives in it in this particular brand, but I've used this since the early 90s and on steel projects, and it works really, really well. It does 3 things. It neutralizes the rust. It'll totally destroy the rust. It etches the surface of the steel and keeps it from rusting in the future. So it's a rust preventative as well, and it's a primer, so it helps the paint stick. So I used to put it in a spray bottle, but it's the, you know, the little droplets that you might breathe in are probably pretty bad for your lungs. So just wipe a coating on it like that and let it dry. Now this is not for real good finishes. You know, if you're looking for a real, you wouldn't do this to your auto body, something you're looking for a really good, sweet paint job and sweet finish, because this primer is more of an industrial crude primer, right? And you're going to leave a layer of it on there, and it's going to dry kind of thick. So literally it'll leave irregularities on the paint. I'm okay with that. For a lot of my projects, a lot of my outdoor steel projects, you know, they're structural steel or they're gates or whatever. If you watch my channel, you see me make a lot of things, making implements, repairing implements, that kind of thing. This is just a preventative, rust preventative for crude stuff. Now, we're just going to put some on right here. We're going to come back and look at that, okay? Just going to wipe this around. This isn't even getting in the camera. Okay, so basically I try to put this on all my steel projects. This is not a good... Okay, so phosphoric acid, I'm just wiping it on. You really don't want to spray it on. You don't want to get the, you know, the droplets in your lungs. But this thing does 3 things. It not only neutralizes the rust, so we're going to come back and look at this rust. This will be neutralized later. It also etches the surface of the steel to prevent rust in the future, to make rust like completely impossible. And then also the third thing is it acts as a primer. So I wipe a coat on this, and this works really, really well as a primer. Now this is a crude primer. This is not something you'd like put on your auto body, you know, on your paint job, and your nice paint job you're doing for your car or whatever. This is just for, you know, I use this on structural steel or repairing implements or, you know, outdoor steel projects, gates, fences, the tractor barn I used it on, all that steel. So if you watch that video, I've used it on steel carports. I've used this since the early 90s. Since probably 1993 is when I started doing, 92, 93 when I started doing a lot of steel projects. So it works really well. It does prevent rust, and we're gonna leave it on and let this dry, and then we'll paint it. Okay guys, I don't know, you know, it came out pretty good for a redneck garage fabrication project. Just a little bit of metal bending. It does cover up the hole. It's not a factory shaped piece by any means, but it seems to be pretty good. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, so I think this is about the bolt I want to use for the front edge of the brush guard. So this is an M8, and got a selection of riv nuts here. All right, so let's just make sure this fits. Okay, and this measures real close to 11 millimeters, just under, and a 7/16 is just over 11 millimeters, like just barely. So I used a 7/16 drill bit, and we'll go ahead and put these in. So I keep all my dies, or whatever these things are called, upright, except for the one that's in the unit itself. So this one's upside down. So I know the M6 is what I used last, and so we'll just get that one out. And to take it out, you just unscrew this part right here on the top. So this part you'll change. This part, this is a little collar that just traps this bolt. So we'll just slide that down, hold it with my fingernail, roll this out. Okay. That's the M6. We'll put it upright because we're not using it. The M8's right here. Take that one out. We'll put this one in upside down. And to put it in just the opposite, we'll just slide this little collar down here. Slide this in, thread it in till it stops. There we go. Put this little collet in, or whatever this thing's called. We can thread our riv nut on. And I don't like to start it with the wings with these levers way out because it's really hard to get leverage. I'm not a big guy, and so what I want to do is roll this up like this, and then we'll thread that down. That way, that allows me to start with a little less outer leverage. Okay, we've still got good capture on the threads there because you don't want to strip your threads out. So something I've learned with this $69 metal cutting saw, it works really well. I'm still on my first blade. I've made dozens of cuts, some of them really long through thick steel, and it's still cutting. So I really am impressed with this. One thing that I struggle with though is there's so much protection here to try to keep your face and your eyes from metal flying. Of course, you need to wear safety glasses. I typically wear this thing, but it's so scratched from years of use. I need to get a new one. Or what I found though is if I look, it's really hard to see where your blade's cutting. Like with the circular saw, you can kind of look around, you know, regular wood cutting circular saw. This one you can't. I found if you look straight down through here, you can see where your blade's cutting. You can see your line. It's just this little tiny window that's about that big, but you can make it work. And so, you know, precision cut that's nice and straight, that ends right where I want it to end. This thing works perfect. So I got 9 by 13, 13 by 9. That's a little bit bigger than my hole by maybe about that much on each side to weld, so that should be plenty. Let's get them welded up. Okay, quick tip on welding this expanded metal to something else. It's real easy to burn through because there's no, you know, if you start your weld right on the expanded metal, it's just going to melt it away. And so what you have to do is start your weld out here on your base metal and drag it into that just for a second and then pull off. And that'll be enough to tack it without just burning and burning and burning it away. The thing is, expanded metal, you know, when you put heat into it, it's got 3 sides that you're putting heat into. And so it's real easy to burn through. When you start your arc here, out here on the base metal, it's only got 1 side that you're putting heat into. So it doesn't burn through as easily. Obviously, we're using a very small setting. Okay guys, I kind of built this and didn't really video what I was building, but let me show you how it turned out. And I'm pretty happy with it. So do yourself a favor and don't do what I did. Try to get all matching bolt heads. So this metric kit I had 13 millimeters. 13 millimeter heads. What? I mean, come on. So this is a 10 millimeter. This is a stock bolt right here, okay? This is a stock factory bolt. So I used 2 of those on those 2 corners. We'll switch out to the 13 millimeter now, which just takes a few seconds if you know what you're doing. There we go. And notice these aren't captured washers either. So it's kind of extra stuff that, you know, screws up your efficiency. If you're going to change the oil 15 times or 20 times, I don't know how long in the life of your vehicle, you know, try to make it now where it's efficient later. You know what I mean? Okay, so basically you can see my bend right here. And so this bend, I just kind of took it off and on a couple times to make sure I got the bend right to where this fit flush here, and then tapered down to land right here. Now my original plan was to bend this a little bit like this, so it would match the flange of the surfaces of where the bolts go in, but I didn't bother with that. I ended up just leaving it. It flexes it a little bit like this. It doesn't look too bad to me, so I'm just leaving it. All right, let's take it down here. Okay. And that's what it looks like. So just welded these on, painted it. You know, even on that light setting, I still had some like little bumps on the outside here where it deformed the metal. So I just smoothed that out with the flap disc, no big deal. Once I painted, it's not even noticeable. All right, you can see I miscalculated one hole right there where I had to re-drill it. But the other holes were okay. Now, as far as these go, I just used riv nuts right here and right here and right here. And I ended up putting a riv nut in the middle right here. So this is a factory hole here for that 10mm bolt. There's one over here, but there wasn't one in the middle. I just wanted to put a third one. There's nothing back there, of course. And I just want to put a third one in place just to give it some nice stability. Now, what's interesting is it's been about 10,000 miles since I put this on here. So I've done two 5,000 mile oil changes, and it's never loosened once. It's never rattled. It stayed together. So hopefully this will keep doing the business. I feel like I'm getting good airflow through here since this blocks off so much of what we talked about that earlier, and I feel like I'm getting better airflow. Okay, now let's come around this passenger side. So another dumb thing I did, please don't do. I'm going to share my dumb experience with you, so hopefully you won't make the same mistake. Now, this inner fender shroud right here was hanging down, and so I thought, oh, I'll just buzz that off with my oscillating multi-tool, right? So I put the little blade on it, and guess what I cut? Yeah, the reservoir for the windshield washer fluid. That was really dumb. So all of a sudden windshield washer fluid's pouring all over, and I'm like, oh, you freaking idiot. So what I did was I let it go ahead and drain, and I just got some of that JB Weld epoxy tank repair instead of spending $200 something on a new tank. And I thought, well, I'll do this temporarily and then buy a tank. It's holding. I'm going to leave it. So that was 10,000 miles ago, and we drive a lot of rough roads, and it's been okay. Now, so what I made was a little flange plate here, just out of some thin metal. So this is real thin steel, and I just formed it over here, wrapped it around the bottom, and how I attached it here was I just drilled a hole right here, and then this is a body bolt, a body mount bolt that just sticks down. So I got a nut to fit that, put a washer on it, drilled a hole, and then that fits right there. Let's see, you can kind of see my epoxy in there, that gray stuff. So that's the corner that I cut right there. Okay, so that protects it from rocks and debris, and I feel really good about that. Some of these, you know, when you put the bumper on, they're really not providing for a protection for that, or you have to buy a special plate for that, and that's cool. And I think those work well, but this is just my redneck, had some metal in the shop, had a few screws, just put it in myself, and works well. Don't have to mess with it. This still comes off separately, of course, and seems to do a good job. Okay, so yeah, 10,000 miles later, and I'm pretty happy. It's all held together, nothing's fallen off. Nothing's rattled loose. You do want to keep an eye on these screws, you know, especially these self-tapping screws. I try to use short ones, so if they do end up on the highway, you know, hopefully it won't cause somebody a flat, or me a flat. So this is just, you know, if you're going to do your own fabrication, you got to double check and triple check your stuff to make sure it doesn't fall off. We talked about this in my bumper, these things in my bumper videos, right? You want to make sure those stay on. You're going to bolt things onto your vehicle, it can't be falling off.